Hey, welcome back post-lunch to the White House financial stage. My name is Aubrey Hawes. I work in our financial services practice, but I'm also the president of FinSiders, which is one of the co-producers of the FinTech Generations event. I'm really looking forward to this dialogue that we're going to have with Brock Blake, CEO and founder of Lendio. Brock founded Lendio about 11 years ago. He was one, I guess, last year for Utah. He was the CEO of the year. Prior to that, he was recognized by E&Y as the entrepreneur of the year. So all that tells me is that they don't like accolades. It says you're doing things the right way, which I think is actually a really great way to kind of go back and get started. And I would say for those of you that aren't familiar with you guys, I think of you guys a little bit like LendingTree for small business. So LendingTree is a successful marketplace lender here based in Charlotte. They're actually just moved to the south end, not far from here. So it's delightful to have you here all the way from Salt Lake City, Utah. So,
yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I love Charlotte. It's a beautiful town. Outside of Salt Lake City. I should say, I say town, but city.
It is a city.
Right? I know. Salt Lake City is as well, and I love the energy around FinTech that's happening here in the city.
Yeah, it's a little flatter, but it's easy to get back and forth between the two communities, and I think as we get going, we'll see how that's changed. So listen, what's interesting when I talk a little bit about those two accolades you received, I think about that in the context of the pandemic as it's kind of winding down. We sort of hope that's, we're actually learning how to kind of go back and live with it. What do you see are really sort of the top learnings that really came, I guess, out of that, through that? How did that really shape what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so a little bit of an intro. So Lendio, the largest marketplace in the U.S. for small business loans, and so we're connecting small businesses to hundreds of lenders, and we were on this nice ramp of growth pre-pandemic, quarter over quarter, growing almost 100% year over year for many years. And March 2020 hit, and every lender on our platform went from give me as many loans as you can possibly give me, I want to fund as much as I can, to I'm out, stop lending. So literally went to zero overnight. And we started hearing these rumblings about the CARES Act and this Paycheck Protection Program and what that would look like. And we felt like part of our mission, we're a mission-driven organization about, we call it Fueling American Dream, helping these small business owners get access to capital. And we felt like we were in this, it was core to our mission that when all these small businesses that were in fear of having their doors shut and going out of business, which was their baby or everything to them.
Yep.
That we were positioned to connect or help these small business owners get access to these paycheck protection loans. We weren't sure how we were going to make money. We weren't sure how we were going to pull it off. The rules were changing every single day. I'm sure many of us lived that experience, and it was. So we decided to go all in. We hired 250 people during the pandemic in a matter of 2 weeks. And they were all work from home, shipping workstations to their houses, and all of that experience, which was totally new. And I have a lot of horror stories. I feel like it took 10 years at least off my life during that time frame, which if we only have 30 minutes, I can talk.
Yeah, only 30 minutes
on that session. But we ended up helping hundreds of thousands of small businesses secure about $10 billion in loans and saved about 1.5 million jobs in the United States. Now, what did we learn during the pandemic? Well, there's a lot of things. We talked a lot about the negative things, but there were a lot of really valuable learnings, not only for small businesses, but for the financial services industry, for fintechs, for banks, for credit unions, and whatnot. And here's a couple of things that to me stood out. Banks financial institutions prior to the pandemic talked about going digital for a long time. I mean, it was decades. We gotta go digital, right? And the pandemic really forced that. Branches were closed, no one could go into the branch, they wanted you to apply online. And banks got a taste of that and they liked it. And so coming out of the pandemic, that's one of the major themes that we've seen with all of our lenders that we work with is that they're significantly motivated to embrace digital technology. The second thing is that prior to the pandemic, a lot of financial institutions talked about small business lending, but it really wasn't small business lending. It was usually loans focused on, or loans greater than $1 million. And the idea was, man, we have to underwrite these loans with a full loan committee, and so I can't underwrite a $50,000 loan and get ROI.
Yeah, that's right. Because typically there's a fixed cost regardless of how big the loan volume is. They get underwritten based on their legacy or fake digital processes, right?
Right, totally. And so at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of the financial institutions, and rightfully so, at the beginning, they were focused on their customers and taking care of their customers. And that average loan size right from the get-go was like, $300,000 to $400,000 of these small businesses.
And as the pandemic went on and the Paycheck Protection Program went on, there was a lot of kind of pressure from politicians and the community, and like the true small businesses are at a disadvantage. They're getting left behind, and it really forced financial institutions to go downstream to help those small businesses, which for us was awesome. We loved. We're so passionate about that. And so banks got a taste of we're truly helping someone that needed a $20,000 loan, and it was pretty incredible. So coming out of the pandemic, those are two things. They're a lot more open to the smaller loans. They know they needed to embrace digital technology and automate some of that. That's an area we're focusing on, is helping those financial institutions do both of those things through some pretty impressive kind of AI-driven technology.
So it's interesting, because I think a lot of people talked about how a lot of those financial services firms had said they were digital. We found out a lot of them weren't digital.
Right.
So I get that sort of hurdle, and I get the cost to underwrite some of those loans. I guess, how do you guys maybe do it differently so that you actually can make money for you and for your partners to go back and underwrite a loan that is $50,000 versus it has to be $1 million in an effective way? Are you guys really approaching how you make those underwriting decisions differently than say a lot of the legacy providers did, pre-pandemic?
No question. So first off, digital doesn't mean that you took your loan application, scanned it, and emailed it over, right? That's not a digital application, and which I know that's way
some people define that as digital, right?
So with the way we kind of think about kind of underwriting this small business loan is can you say yes to the customer at night when the branch is closed? And so what do you have to do to be able to accomplish that? So first of all, business owner comes in, signs up. We're doing a lot of credit and public search records to be able to say, is this business in business? What's the legitimacy of it? We're matching the business owner's profile and identity to the business, looking at LexisNexis and Dun & Bradstreet and other public search records. Then we're looking at the true health and the cash flow of the business, validating how long has it been in business, and allowing the business owner to sync their bank account to be able to go and pull the raw transaction data over the last 6 months, doing cash flow calculations around that, looking at average daily balances, looking at the number of deposits, the number of withdrawals each month, is the number of NSFs, is the cash flow trending going up or is it going down, and is it seasonal or is it not seasonal? And so looking at tax return data, you can use OCR technology to read some of the PDFs. And so at the end of the day, that you can look at what's the probability of default was what we're trying to understand.
Yep.
And can you say yes in a matter of minutes, and use the financial institution's underwriting policy to guide it, whether it's credit score based or geography or other industry or other things like that. We can infuse that into the process, but the goal is to be able to say, for those smaller loans, sub $250,000, that bank can say yes at night when the branch is closed.
That's impressive. I think at the end of the day, as we've heard from some other people that have been speaking at this conference, not only does it help the small business, it actually helps save the jobs in those communities where that was a huge sort of concern for how did they kind of go back and keep that going.
Yeah.
But I guess if you kind of contrast that as you talk a little bit as when we were preparing for this, I love the analogy where you were trying to kind of compare how you guys make lending decisions and using artificial intelligence, using OCR technologies, to almost how maybe some folks figured out how to get into this conference space today.
Yeah, so we looked at it we've been talking about it from the lending institutions angle. And I'd love to actually have, if we can throw up that other slide on the screen here. So I want to talk about it for a second from the small business owner's perspective. So, and I use this analogy of MapQuest versus Waze. How many of you, maybe the youngins don't remember using MapQuest, but I'm sure a decent number of people in the audience remember using MapQuest, right? So you go to MapQuest, you'd print it off, and you'd have 4 or 5 pages. In this case, there are 3 pages, and it had all the different instructions: go 0.1 miles or 0.5 miles. And it didn't. What happened is you were going along the way, and there was construction, or there was a car accident, or there was some sort of detour. It didn't matter. This was your MapQuest directions, and then you were SOL, right? You were in trouble. And Waze, and most of the mapping technologies takes in real-time data to be able to guide you on your path to get you to your destination in the most time-efficient manner. Well, small business owners, I think a lot of times we're looking at lending, and we're taking a snapshot view of that small business owner today. Let's look at an application. Let's look at your tax returns. Let me get your financials and look at it at one moment in time. But business owners they're managing this business, and it's changing on a daily basis of inventory and credit and their cash flow and their needs and their number of employees and their revenue and everything. And we believe that there's an opportunity to create the Waze type experience for these small business owners, where it's an always-on application. Our goal is that the business owner never has to complete an application ever again. So they're managing their business, and they're looking at getting daily alerts. Okay, your cash is up, your cash is down. You've got payroll due. You've got in 4 months you're going to have a cash shortfall. You're already approved for a $40,000 loan. Click here to take it. And then my team created this sound. I'm hoping it will come through on the mic. This type of concept.
Recalculating. Your access to capital has now increased.
That's music to an entrepreneur's.
Right? Can you imagine that? Oh, well, your revenue is going up. You were approved for $30,000. Now you're approved for $50,000. And it just fluctuates with you as a business. And you can always just say, I need capital, right? So that's what we're focused on. It's less about, the core is this marketplace connecting. But now we're taking it, okay, now we got to help the banks automate. We got to help the small business owners, really look at their lending as an extension of their cash flow, more than this moment in time where I need to go apply and get rejected. And I just wanted to hit one other thing on this. I think what this does is it opens up lending to some communities that honestly have been disadvantaged in the past, by going into the branch or other things like that. Women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and other things like that were maybe judged on other things besides, specifically the creditworthiness of that business. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we're truly passionate about at Lendio, and believe that we should look at a business for the health of that business, and not on other factors that may negatively impact the decision.
Well, and I think that's what they end up saying, the anonymization of how I interact with a chatbot or an online service versus picking up and talking to a call center agent, much less walking into a branch. The amount of information someone's willing to share has just really skyrocketed. So I think if you have that ability, then you truly are judging them based on, is this a really good credit decision to go back and make based on the health of the business, and changing it based on that. And so you really get to be judged on how effective is your business versus any bias, and you shouldn't, and there should be very comfortable around coming to you guys. No question. Does that tie in at all to kind of Lendio Gives? Maybe that's a good segue there. It was one of the things when I was looking you up, Brock, to see what have you done. It's interesting because I look at Lendio Gives, and a big part of what Dan has done here, they've set up a foundation to figure out how they keep this going. There are other sort of I would say, entrepreneurship organizations in Charlotte that have been giving back into other areas to go back and help. Tell us a little bit more about Lendio Gives.
Yeah, so Lendio Gives is an arm of Lendio that really focuses on how do we give back to the community and have an impact on the lives of others around the world, right? And so there's kind of two components to it. The first is that for every loan that's funded on our platform, and it's thousands that are happening each month, we'll fund more than $1 billion of loans this year across hundreds of thousands of small businesses. So for each one of those loans, we contribute a loan to an entrepreneur in a third world country. 90% of the entrepreneurs are female entrepreneurs. And the way that this happens, though, is that it's employee driven. So we ask our team members to sacrifice one thing a month. I don't care if it's a cup of coffee, a lunch, a dinner, whether it's $5 or $100, it doesn't matter to me. Sacrifice something, contribute to this, and then Lendio matches that, and then it's the performance on these loans are incredible.
Okay.
It's like very extremely, like almost no defaults. So the repayment of those loans, it's evergreen. It goes back into this fund, and we just keep going back and funding these. So if you go to Kiva, you can look at Lendio Gives. I think we're the number 1 or 2 kind of provider of these, microloans.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Are they microloans kind of?
Yeah, across the world. And so you're helping, a female entrepreneur that wants to buy, in Africa, wants to buy a goat and sell the goat's milk to feed their family, or, they're making, some sort of craft. The stories are incredible. So that's one aspect. And then the second aspect is, how do we give back to the community? So our kind of the service arm, about a month ago, we were at a local park in just outside of Salt Lake City that needed some upkeep, and we had our team out there with their shovels, and they're getting their hands in the dirt and trying to give back in the community through whether it's donations or service or food drives or other things like that. So it's something our team just has taken that and run with it, and I love it.
Okay, it's interesting. We were talking a little bit about culture, and I think it's kind of what you were kind of touching on. And when we've talked a little bit about kind of comparing, Salt Lake City or Charlotte. Like Charlotte knows it's not New York. Yeah. We're becoming more and more like Atlanta with traffic every year, it seems like. But we're not Atlanta. I know you guys aren't, the Valley.
Yep.
But it seems the ability of these communities to sort of collaborate. We certainly are trying to really collaborate here to raise Charlotte's profile in fintech and entrepreneurs with this conference. I guess, how do you really, would you say, highlight, how is Lendio doing it right to attract the right sort of talent that wants to join your organization? I mean, I would tell you those two things you just highlighted around giving back into my own local community, but then also how can I go back and help, while I'm actually helping do good in the community that I'm in, I'm also helping fund microloans to emerging markets, and the fact that continues to sort of recycle just has got to make me feel good about showing up to work every day.
Yeah. So, let me just first say that we've done, I'm so passionate about our culture, and we've learned a lot through trial and error, right? We all, let's try this, or let's, but, there's 3 things that we kind of hang our hat on. And the first is that this around values. What are the values that we espouse at Lendio that we hire and fire to? So for us, the 2 are humble and hungry. And that type of person who comes in doesn't have to be, doesn't always have to be right, isn't the smartest in the room, like really team oriented, likes to get feedback, all that kind of stuff. Plus this combination of I'm motivated, I'm driven, I like goals, I want to, that's a big part of kind of our culture. So we really hire and fire to that. The second thing is that we look for people that are mission driven, that love the idea of small businesses and giving back and helping business, like the stories of helping these small businesses, grow their business and be the lifeblood of the economy. Like that's a really important part of who we are. And then third, I would say is they have to have this kind of growth mindset. We're growing very quickly, and that requires adapting and changing and it's not kind of for the faint of heart, because there's a lot that happens as we continue to accelerate. So those are the things that we seek to we use to attract the talent that we're going from.
And so people that must be able to need to wear lots of different hats if you guys are in kind of that hyper growth mode.
Yeah.
So it's interesting as you talk about mission. I know Bill Rogers, the CEO of Truist, was talking a little bit yesterday about purpose and how do you attract. They talked about they attract a lot of talent based on purpose, which is very similar how you guys do it with mission. So it's interesting to get even a very very large bank with a more entrepreneurship organization. Still, it doesn't mean that those missions or purpose can't apply to both.
Yep.
How has can you talk a little bit the impact of culture around what it's been like with your staff during the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic? How has that changed how your teams work together to go back and deliver capability to your customers? Has it changed?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, we flew close to the sun. It was with PPP loan, just because of the sheer demand. We had the first day of PPP, I put out a tweet that caught me. I'd never had anything like this happen before in my life. It went viral, and with the next 3 days, I was literally I had about 32, I think it was, press interviews. I was on CNN, I was on CNBC, I was in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, San Francisco Chronicle, every publication, tier 1 publication, because PPP was thrust on stage, and what happened was that attracted thousands of business owners to Lendio. We were already growing and had a good brand, but this really accelerated that. And so it took a pretty, you talk about kind of, how much work you put in, and sometimes, I'm putting in 20-hour days. You kind of say that as cliche. We were legit putting in 20-hour days for 6 weeks straight, and no time off. And, but our mission changed from fueling the American dream to saving the American dream. And you can never underestimate the power and the force of a group of individuals that are kind of joined together around this common cause that's bigger than themselves. And so that was amazing to be able to see. So, what have we learned since then? A lot around during the time, you kind of, all of the culture questions around, okay, well, how do you stay connected, and how do you keep your culture thriving, and when you're remote, and what is your policy? Is it work from home? Is it in the office, and all those kind of things? I'm happy to talk. I don't know, where do you want to go?
Is it evolving? I guess, are you in the office? So we certainly heard different views on this, and some people say, no, I need that team in the office because that's what's going to instill the values. It helps deliver on the mission because I need to do that, or it's like, no, I can go back and do that remote. I guess where you think and my thought is, as others are probably trying to understand how to go back and do that right, how do you see that really helping impact your organization?
Yeah, so what we've tried to do is study out what's best for the organization and for our team around kind of where do you work? Is it work from home, or is it in the office? And we found a few things. The first thing we found was that there's benefits from working from home from a productivity standpoint. Less distractions, people are at home and they've got projects and they can just crank them out, and so there was some real positives around that. One of the concerns that came up pretty strongly was that there was, at least for our team and the research we've done, was there's some, it took a toll from a mental and emotional health for our team members when they were full-time work from home, meaning they didn't ever get out, they couldn't separate work from home, it was kind of always on, and and working from sometimes your pajamas all day long and all that kind of stuff, and there was no interaction with our team. And when we invited people kind of during the pandemic come back in the office, and there was that collaboration and there was that energy and there was the feeding that came from that was really positive and beneficial. Even people that were a little bit resistant about coming back, when they did, they were grateful. And we're very kind of fairly vocal about it. So it's not a one size fits all, but the way we've landed is a hybrid.
Okay.
So we recommend 2 to 3 days in the office, 2 to 3 days, at home. We try and have those days in the office that they're really collaborative days, where you get your meetings in. I think it's hard to get sometimes, meetings when it's 5 people in the room and 2 people are on a camera, and like if you're on the camera at home, to get that the body language and the tones and the feel and reading the room and all that. So we try and do those meetings in person, and a lot of the innovation, product engineering, and other kind of.
It's hard to whiteboard on
Exactly.
Zoom, or if everyone's virtual, it's not great, but at least they're all there. And I get exactly what you mean, right? If those guys are together and gals in a room, you certainly can go back and break through and really kind of cause some aha moments when you start doing it. And sometimes you need to illustrate that.
No question. Yeah. And then when they need to be productive or whatever, and they can come in the office whenever they want, but they, those that want to do it at home. The other thing we invested in, we truly believe in experiences for our team members.
Okay.
And so we have an untracked kind of PTO with, like a lot of people do, but we invested in a program where we match, the team member can take a portion of their paycheck every single month and put it towards a personal or family experience. And then we match that. And so what we're trying to do is that we can basically help them afford a trip, a family experience, or whether it's to Disneyland or to Hawaii or Florida or wherever they want to go, right?
Right.
But we truly believe in experiences, and so that's one thing that that our team members love is that investment in, hey, get away from the office, turn it off, go have some time with your family. Those are some other things we take pride in.
No, I think it's we talk this. One of the themes of this conference is recharge,
right?
And I think that's a great way, because listen, I work remote, and that's the good and bad. You can work all the time remote, and I can work from anywhere. That's good and bad, because
right.
Sometimes it means you do work all the time if you don't strut those boundaries. So maybe as the last kind of topic is, you just kind of, can you give any kind of lessons learned? You're certainly a successful entrepreneur. We have other entrepreneurs at this conference. Any sort of lessons learned, best practices, what to do, what not to do, any sort of advice that you can go back and share, and then maybe we'll take a question from the audience.
Oh man, I honestly have made every mistake in the book along the way. Like we failed a bunch of different times, and I actually describe my career in these, what I call 5 fetal position moments, where I literally am on the ground, basically in tears, in a fetal position, and not knowing if we were going to make it the next day, like legit. And 2 of those happened actually during the pandemic. And so for the entrepreneurs that are out there, I feel I've been there, I've done that, and I know there will be more fetal position moments where. Half the battle is can you make it? How do you fight to live another day? How do I get to tomorrow? And how do I solve this problem? And just like persistence. And then, so that'd be number 1. Number 2 would be, entrepreneurship. There's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. You have to enjoy the journey, like along the way. You have to take in the moments and not get too excited. And sometimes the highest of highs and the lowest of lows are literally in the same day or within hours of each other. And so I don't have it all figured out, but those are 2 lessons I've learned along the way.
Cool. We probably have a question, maybe time for one question from the audience before we go to the next panel. Anyone have a question for Brock? Anyone? Nope. Okay. Well, with that, I know we're at time. So I just would like for everyone to give Brock a round of applause.
Appreciate it.
And don't go anywhere. because Brock's going to stay on stage. We're going to have a quick sort of intermission, not a long break. So a quick sort of intermission to set it up, and we're going to do a panel discussion with a few others on stage with Brock. Thank you.
Thanks, Aubrey. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks, everyone.